In the final chapters, I consider a number of ways unmixed whiteness may persist, from the least to most likely. Might unmixed whites retreat into virtual reality? Could genetic engineering permit hybridized whites to whiten themselves, much as Latin American elites have tended to do through selective marriage? I'm skeptical. Much more likely is the survival of unmixed whiteness within fundamentalist religious sects I call time capsules of whiteness. These groups, described in detail in my previous book, Shall the Religious Inherit the Earth?, have high birth rates and little interaction with the mainstream. They are religiously, not racially motivated, but they rarely intermarry. The Amish, ultra-Orthodox Jews, Orthodox Dutch Calvinists, Hutterites, Finnish Laestadian Lutherans, Quiverful Calvinists, and Mormons will be a much bigger demographic force in a century than they are now. Already, the ultra-Orthodox are a third of Jewish Israeli first-graders, and by 2050 will form a majority of observant Jews in America and Britain. Since these groups are essentially all white, they push against the grain of the West's racial trajectory. Heavily Mormon Utah's population is increasingly diverging from the rest of the country, with a much whiter young population than neighboring states. The main reason large sections of Brooklyn are becoming whiter is because of the rapid growth of the city's ultra-Orthodox Jewish community, where women bear an average of 6 to 7. White fundamentalists. The mixed-race whites of the West in 2200 are likely to embrace virtual reality and genetic engineering. Does this mean unmixed whiteness will survive in only a few pockets, or is the odd genetic fluke? Not necessarily. In my Shall the Religious Inherit the Earth, 2010, I argue that religious fundamentalists who reject the modern world, grow through high birth rates, and retain their offspring have hit upon the most consistently successful model for success in liberal societies. So long as they are tolerated, groups like the ultra-Orthodox Jews, Amish, Hutterites, traditional Mennonites, Laestadian Lutherans, Orthodox Calvinists, Quiverful Neo-Calvinists, and Mormons will expand rapidly. Secular or moderately religious populations make up the vast majority of the world's population, but are moving in the direction of below-replacement fertility and population decline. At present, immigration is making up the shortfall in the West, but if this slows down, the fertility advantage of closed fundamentalists will become decisive. These pro-natalist sects are motivated by religion, but happen to be exclusively white. As such, they are genetic time capsules from particular times and places. Amish, Hutterites, and traditional Mennonites are German groups whose membership numbered in the hundreds not so long ago. Ultra-Orthodox Jews are mainly Ashkenazi Jews of Eastern European origin. Mormons are mostly English, reflecting the ethnic demography of New England prior to Irish immigration, with an admixture of British and Swedish converts. No wonder Utah, the center of Mormonism, is the most ethnically English state in the Union. The Quiverful movement, which eschews birth control and aims to reconquer the United States for Neo-Calvinism in 2 centuries through demography, probably reflects the predominantly English, Scotch, Irish, or German background of whites in the American Bible Belt. In most cases, these groups are small, but when a group maintains a fertility rate of 5 to 7 children per woman for generations, it multiplies like compound interest. The American Amish population, for instance, rose 120% between 1992 and 2013, while the U.S. population grew by only 23%. 5,000 Amish individuals in 1900 have grown to more than 250,000 today, with a doubling time of 25 years. If the doubling time remains constant, in little more than 2 centuries, the Amish could form half the population. This presumes they are able to keep their fertility and retention at current levels for 200 years. They've done it for a century, But there's no telling whether a Mennonite-style sect-to-church moderating effect might take the edge off their fertility by then. What seems to work against this is the secularism of the modern West, which these groups are reacting to. Whereas a traditionally religious group like Somali Muslim immigrants will reduce their fertility over a generation or two as they become modern, closed religious sects are inoculated against modernity. They've been bathed in it for generations and have learned to resist its charms. As a result, they lose very few members to the wider society. The U.S. is a big country and the Amish are small, but in some jurisdictions the reverse is true. Take Israel. The ultra-Orthodox model of the segregated secular society only developed in the 1950s and 1960s. Ultra-Orthodox or Haredi Jews have a fertility rate of around 6 to 7 children per woman. Fewer than 10% leave the fold. Retention is high in closed sects because those who depart are shunned by family and friends and become completely cut off from the world they once knew.